All right, so we've got the fill in there. One last little area as I'm looking around my edges, always check your edges, is this little black rectangle. And instead of bringing in new reference for that, I might just find that layer and hit Command T. Actually, let's see, let's make sure I'm on the right layer. Get this layer, hit Command T, and then I'm just going to scale it a little bit, just to push it to the edge. It's the tiniest little movement, but it will fix that problem for me. Okay, so now I got foreground, background. Got most things looking nice and sharp. The key to a successful composite is paying attention. Now, once you have all the pieces in place, to the details that are giving you the image. So I go back to some of my very first things I had to do, which is using Magic Wand and selecting. These little cutouts. There we go. Make sure I'm on the right layer. Make sure contiguous is checked. And remember, at the end of the day, Photoshop just gives you control of every pixel, and you get to decide what to do with it. And of course, that's the problem, and the great downfall of digital art is you can always do more to improve it. There's no natural place to stop. But checking it now, all of this looks pretty good. But everything's so crisp. And some things are more crisp than others. And so it looks a little unreal. And so now I need to add some atmosphere. So what we're going to do is just an old trick, and it's called a texture fill. And sometimes we can add atmosphere just by affecting the image adjustments of all of it together, kind of all over adjustments. Now to do that, I am simply going to take the entire image without my frame. I'm going to have it all showing. And then I'm going to hold down Option, go to Layer, and it's very important to be holding down Option when you do this, and say Merge Visible. I could also say Merge Down. And what it will do, because I held down Option, is it will give me a new layer on the very top. That is all of my layers combined into one, all flattened together, while still preserving all my individual cutouts. So now it's all one layer behind my frame. And now that allows me to do adjustments to the whole thing. Let me make sure I don't have any selections. So now if I adjust the levels, I can make the whole thing lighter, the whole thing darker. Can make sure that the shadows and the highlights are optimized. Maybe I'll shift it just a little bit darker, like that. And I should probably be doing this on a duplicate. And then I can also shift the colors using color balance in the interest of atmosphere. What will give me the most depth? Kind of warm highlights, cool shadows. Blend them together and then combine them using Command E. Okay, So that's one way, and that can finish it off, but it doesn't take care of kind of sharp edges, everything being kind of equally sharp in the foreground here until we get to the background where it gets a little softer, which is exactly how it would be. So the other thing we can do is play with what are called texture fills. And so we can do this over the whole image. I'm going to save this before I move on. Or we can do it into part of an image. And I'm going to go to a Google image search, and I'm going to look for, in this case, a dust cloud, because I'm in kind of this dusty coastal scene. And I want to look for images of dust clouds off the coast. And I'm not too worried about how big they are, and you'll see why. But maybe to lessen some of the images I get, I'll use search tools and I'll change the size to be at least 4 megapixels. So with the coast in there, I get a lot of satellite imagery, which isn't all that helpful. But this kind of stuff, this starts to be pretty helpful. Maybe I'll get rid of coast. So just dust cloud, maybe storm. And you might be looking for mist, you might be looking for fog. Yeah, because it's off the coast. I mean, this would work quite well. I even like the colors there. I might look for fog, cloud, coast at 4 megapixels. And what I want is just the texture of a cloud, kind of like what this image shows you. But I don't want anything except the clouds. So I'm going to glaze my painting with it, glaze my image. And it'll help give me kind of selective viewing. Oh, that's a good one. All right, so I've opened these all up in new tabs. That one just lied to me about how big it was. So it's kind of like this image. See the softness of the detail because it's looking through the atmosphere. That's something we can produce in our composite, and it's very helpful, especially when you're trying to do something that's effective. Remember, always check your image. Make sure that the source material is good. All right, so this looks good. I know it doesn't look like much. In fact, it looks like someone just playing the sprinklers on a foggy day, but it's going to work. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to save it to the desktop. Then I'm going to bring it in on top of my image, right underneath my, my mask there, as a smart layer. Just like that. And I can stretch it out. I'm going to rasterize it so I can edit it some more. I'm going to grow it so much that I don't even see the red of that girl in there. So it's more like just edges, like so. Maybe I'll put a little bit of that red in there, just at the edge. Okay. So I've got this huge blurry texture now overlapping my whole image. It makes me realize I need to add this side onto my frame, my top layer, just because I've moved my frame around. Right, so now I should see that texture fill only where I want it to be. And then the easiest way to use a texture fill is to just play with its opacity. Right? So that's with 45% opacity. Makes a big difference, giving it that fog. And then if I duplicate it, it will be even stronger. Right? But what I like to do is selectively use it. So now I have a duplicate copy. And what I'm going to do is erase with this really big soft-edged eraser. Very important that it's 0% hardness. at 100% opacity, or whatever opacity you feel comfortable with. Maybe I'll do slightly less than 100%. And I'm going to cut away, so I don't want the fog to hit the foreground too much. I don't even want it to hit this kind of middle ground rubble too much, because that's already kind of blurry. But I want it to kind of go in between some of these buildings and break it up. And I don't need it so much in the sky. And so what I have is a layer I can play with, that then I can play with its levels. You know, letting it kind of deepen my image in some areas and brighten it in others. That just looks like water vapor coming off the coast and helping separate the middle ground from the background. And if I feel like I need more of a dust cloud in some places, I can always do this. Okay, kind of take a chunk of it, say, okay, I want the cloud to be like there, and just duplicate it. Just like that, right on top of the image. And then just erase away from it, selectively, with my big soft eraser. And then it can be a lot of fun to play with its hue saturation too. Because when you have water vapor, or you have a dust cloud, or you have any kind of weather pattern, it can change the way the light reflects and what colors you see, like rainbows and all of that. And because I'm only at 31% opacity here, I'm having to erase a lot. But I can also just take the whole layer down a bit. But I want to show you kind of heavy texture fill in some areas, less in others. And if I want absolutely no texture fill over some things, like let's say this guy, I can just put it on top. Put this on top of that. But I like to have a little bit of texture fill on top of everything. Just a little, maybe not much. You can even play with blending modes. So letting it only lighten or overlaying it. Overlay works quite well, so that some of your deepest shadows still come through. And you'll see the effect it can have. And it adds just beautiful intention to your work. All the decisions you're making are your own. You're deciding what we're focusing on. So I don't want people to focus so much on this rubble underneath here. I want them to see the foreground coming through. So that's why I have this cloud that helps separate it.